Welcome everyone to another in our founder interview series with the cryptochemistry team. Today we are highlighting one of the newest play to earn games on the secret network, Orbem Wars Tower Defense, made by Domerium Labs. And we're very lucky to be joined here today by Stefan, who, Stefan, what is your title with Domerium Labs?
I guess we could call myself founder, but we haven't
Yeah.
really gotten around to titles yet, so we're just building.
Well, yeah. So, Orbem Wars is a tower defense game, as I mentioned, built on the Secret Network, incorporating NFTs. Right now, we're in alpha version 4.2, I believe.
Yep.
But yeah, I wanted to. You had mentioned it's you. What? Who else is on the team for Orbem Wars?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on here.
Yeah.
It's great to get the word out, and I know that you two have been playing a little bit, and that's great as well to see the community interacting with the alphas that we're pushing out. So we're currently a team of three. We got myself and another person that are putting in like full-time equivalent hours, and we're mostly doing the coding part. My team member that's doing coding is mostly the server side, so everything related to database management, server interfaces with the clients, everything that has to basically happen in the back end is pretty much his gig. I'm mostly doing the front end, the game logic, the game mechanics, and then we have a third team member who's putting in time on and off depending on the band. As she's working on the art of the game, so all the towers, all the tanks are being created by her.
Very nice. Yeah, yeah. That's been one of the uh, biggest differences I think throughout alpha is the graphics have gotten really progressively pretty good. But
Yeah, we've put some effort into the effects.
mhm.
But yeah, it's like from a graphical perspective, so much still has to be done in terms of how especially the world looks. So we expect
Yeah.
some major graphical updates to be coming to Orbem Wars, not in the near future, probably in early access once we got the NFTs out.
Okay. Well, there's a lot we want to get into, but before we get to the demo, I was curious, just at a high level, why tower defense?
Um, well, why any game, right? It's like we. I personally was working on a project for the better part of 2 years when the game engine that I used required an update for me to be able to do the things that I wanted to do. So basically, I took a break from that project and was looking for a way to basically play around with NFTs. That was really like the first thing that I decided to do. I was the education leader of Secret Network. I was getting more and more involved with crypto, especially Secret Network. And I was like, you know what? I'm a game developer. NFTs and games, that's seems to be a 1+1. So let's experiment with that. So I was looking for something that was relatively quick to make. It's not going to take like 3 years.
Mhm.
But that you can really, create an economy around, create an NFT economy around, not something that felt like a ripoff or felt like a game designed around NFTs, but more like NFTs integrated within a real game. And tower defense seemed like a great a concept or genre to put that effort into. And over time, as Secret and Kadala joined, the scope of the game just became bigger and bigger. And now we are looking at a project that definitely went on a little bit longer than we initially thought. But at the same time, it's because we are basically adding more features to really make the NFTs and the game itself so much more than what it would have otherwise have been. So actually really glad with the scope creep that has occurred.
That's awesome. Uh, One thing I really like too is it's very unique. There aren't really any other tower defense games being built, at least that I know of, on any sort of crypto networks. So that's cool to see. A lot of people are trying to do these MMORPGs or big overarching RPG type games, and yeah, like you said, that's 5-10 years of development, and I don't
Easily.
think a lot of them understand that. Whereas something that's a simple game loop to make, and then you can kind of iterate and add stuff to it, like a tower defense game, I think is a really cool first kind of. It's a good game to be doing on a crypto network.
Yeah, absolutely. And also from the team's perspective, you're also talking about risk. Like right now I know a lot more about Secret Network and what's it capable of than 8 months ago. But if I imagine myself 8 months ago coming up with an idea to create an MMORPG on a network that I don't even really know how it's going to handle traffic, how it's going to handle load, and we have seen a couple of issues, of course, as I think is natural with growing blockchains in terms of like transaction throughput. And it seems like a big risk to take on for a 5-year project if you don't exactly know how the blockchain is going to handle your game. So I think as a team, it's important to get your feet wet. And I think we're doing both the community and ourselves a service in getting our feet wet with a genre that is smaller in scope. We can deliver a quality product and at the same time get the knowledge that we need for the next project.
Yeah, and the fact that you actually have a working game that you can play that has a good game loop in it right now is, I mean, that's loads ahead of a lot of these other NFT projects where they're raising a bunch of money first and then after the fact saying, oh, we'll build this game or whatever. It's, I really like the way you guys are going about it.
Yeah, it's also the only way that we feel comfortable with it. So we wouldn't want to do it any other way.
Yeah, I'll echo that. It's in alpha still. I mean, I've only ever played betas, but even in alpha, this thing it's a full game. I know there's a lot you want to add, but it's in a good spot. So you mentioned a lot about Secret Network, and I'm curious why you decided to build on Secret Network. Obviously, you have a background there. You said you were involved in the community, but why did you want to plant your flag in the Secret Network with this game?
Well, one simple word: privacy. That's it. And I think if you want to create a game that has PvP elements, you can't go around the fact that you need privacy in your NFTs. The only exception, I guess, that I can put in there is if your NFTs are only skins. Like if it's only skins, if it's only cosmetics, then it doesn't really matter whether they're private or not. But if your in-game items are represented by NFTs on the blockchain and you have PvP, well, that means that people can derive information from the blockchain, but with blockchain analysis about what you as a player have. And, depending on the genre, that may consist of different pieces of information. In a card game, they may be able to analyze what cards you have. Now, if they know what cards you have, they still don't know which deck you're going to be playing. But generally, you will see that if you have a set of cards that form a certain strategy, if you, let's say, find another card that doesn't fit in your strategy, what is the most likely thing you do with that card? You sell it so that you can buy something that you actually need. So depending on which cards you have in your inventory, a player that has experience with the game can probably derive what kind of a strategy, what kind of a deck you will be playing with those cards. And the same if your character represents or is represented by an NFT on the chain, and maybe the level, the class, the skills that it has unlocked, all those kinds of things could be NFTs. And if that's all on the blockchain, well, now I can I know what to expect if I meet you in an arena or in a PvP contest. And you can even go so much further. If you, let's say, have clan versus clan warfare, I can do those same analysis for each of your top tier players. And then I know your top tier players, which are the best ones, how I'm going to counter those, because those are probably going to be like 80% of the brunt that's going to be brought into combat. And even further than that, I can even derive from block activity what the time zone is that your clan is top heavy. So I can even determine which time slot I should be attacking your castle or your base if there's like some sort of like a clan versus clan warfare element there. So there's a lot of information that one can derive from the blockchain. And I think that deteriorates the actual gameplay. Like as a game designer and developer, you don't only create possibilities in the game, but you also represent information, or you code and you create the information that is represented to the player itself and the enemies. For example, if you lose a match in some games, you see maybe what gun you were killed with, or you see, what units the player was heavy in. For example, easy example, Age of Empires 2. You get all these statistics at the end of combat. Mm-hmm. And that's still a game being played very heavily, from which you can analyze, hey, if I'm going to meet this player or that player again in the future, I maybe know how they're playing, because I can see all these stats.
Yeah, you can see their tendencies.
You can. But that is a design choice by the developer. The developer decided that's the information we're going to represent in this battle report. So it's by intent that the person learns that information. But if you want to hide some of the information because that maybe creates a better PvP experience, if the blockchain then gives that information anyway, then basically you're limited as a game developer in your choice what information is or is not spread in or after a PvP match.
Yeah, and that's like inherent to all competition. We think about professional sports, and misdirection that's part of the game. And there's really no reason you should lose that when you go to video games.
Exactly. And the only way that you can keep that to yourself as a game designer, the only way you can keep control over that is if that information stays hidden. And that's what Secret Network does for us. And that's why I cannot imagine myself building a game on any other chain, really, unless it's like a player versus environment game where that doesn't matter. Or, like I said, if it's only skins. But I think, if we reduce the possibilities of NFTs in games to just skins and just PvE games, then basically we're reducing ourselves to 20% of the market, even if it is 20% of the market. So, yeah. Now, for me, Secret Network is the only logical choice for a game developer to build their game.
Yeah. So I want to dig into the PvP. I want to dig into the NFTs, especially because they're so central to this game. But maybe I'd like to actually bring up Orbem Wars and go through a demo, and because I think that would really help us really visualize this stuff. So I am going to bring this up. Here we go. So this is the landing screen for Orbem Wars. For anyone who's interested in playing, you simply go to Domerium Labs.
You could go to our Twitter
Discord,
account,
right?
Domerium Labs. It's right underneath there at Domerium Labs. Then you'll find in the biography of our Twitter account, you'll see a link to our Discord. And in the Discord, you can find all the links, the information, some basic information to get you started. So it should all be there. And I guess that's a great place to be for the community to connect if you've got any questions.
Absolutely. I will say one of my favorite parts about this has been the accessibility. I was up and running in Orbem Wars in 3 minutes. It's
great.
Been very nice. So, but here's the landing screen. We have the ability to start our games, which maybe we can start there. So we have 4 different game modes. Campaign is probably the most intuitive, most people are familiar with. But can you walk us through these other game modes and whether they're available?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so in the campaign, and maybe you can click it so people get an idea of what I'm talking about. So basically, you're presented the constellation of Ehen. It has the 6 stars, and in the future we can expand that with multiple constellations. And each star has its own star system with various planets. So if you were to click Go here, you can see the star system of the first star. And each of these planets are basically a map that comes in 4 different stages, and these 4 stages can be played as a PvE match. So this is basically your campaign where you, in many games, you have map 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. We didn't want to bore it down to something as easy as 1.1, 1.2. So we create a little bit of a story around that and have these various star systems. But it functions very similar in that regard. Now, if we go back twice and we go to the other game modes, we have events and contracts. I'm going to skip leagues there for a second. So the events and the contracts are basically long-term and short-term events. The events category is currently under construction. It's going to be launched later on, but it's going to have these big long-term events which are basically going to drive the story of Orbem Wars forward. So that might be related to some intergalactic conflict. Who knows? Maybe there's going to be an alien species in the future that's going to be invading the constellation. Of course, bringing all types of new technology, towers, modifications, etc., etc. But it could also be maybe when we indeed have a new constellation for the players to discover. Maybe we'll have some sort of long-term event for the players to collectively build a Stargate so that we can travel to this new constellation. So we basically can put a lot of story-driven events in there that are more long-term, and that you will have players competing over ranking in these events and probably winning some of the most rare and some of the most exclusive NFTs that will be out there. And then contracts, on the other hand, are more I guess you can compare it to other games, your daily missions or weekly missions, like shorter-term events where people can also win NFTs, and they also will be competing with each other. So these are usually NPC factions that give you a certain assignment to maybe defend a certain planet or attack a certain planet. There might be some corporate struggle there, or pretty much like we'll come up with various storylines or story-driven events for people to basically compete with each other. So they're a great way to win new NFTs for players. And then lastly, the leaks. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask, who is in charge of the lore here? Is that your
That'll
hands?
be me.
Are you the one coming up with these?
Yeah, that'll be me.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then you have lastly the leaks. This is basically PvP. So this is you versus other players. We're not exactly sure yet how we want to cut that up, if we want to do it in like seasons, or if we want to do it in certain arenas or in certain maybe stages. Maybe we even have like, let's say, a less than a month old player arena, or maybe we'll have different, basically we want to create different sets of competitions for people to compete in, so that different types of players, more casual players, younger players, always have that opportunity to be able to win something. Not that there's only one arena and it's always, the player that has been playing for 4 years, got all the NFTs that they want to, is always going to be the winner. That wouldn't be fun. So with leagues, we're going to try and create a little bit of a mix so that everybody can find an interesting place to PvP in, basically.
Awesome. So when you say PvP, what do you mean by that exactly? Will that just be the two people playing the same map for a high score, or is there some other sort of interaction that they'll have?
The plan with that is that we're going to give players the opportunity to play the tank side of the tower defense game. So right now you're only able to find tower-based NFTs, but that will change in the future, where you'll also be able to find tank-based NFTs and get specific modifications to equip to your tanks. This will most likely not be a real-time combat event, and this is very much alpha, very much under considerations. This is very much work in progress. But what we envision at the moment is that as a player, you choose a defensive base. So maybe you can choose between a couple of maps, let's say 3, 4, or 5 maps. So maybe you choose the particular map that fits well with the kind of towers that you got. Then you set up your defense probably in a couple of stages. So maybe there's like 3 stages of the PvP match, and for each stage you set up which towers you want to place. And then once somebody goes out and starts to look for a PvP match, they may be able to find you. You can be offline, you can be online, doesn't really matter. And they're going to have to try and beat the defenses that you've set up earlier. Maybe you set them up yesterday, a week ago, doesn't really matter. The reason why we want to go for this non-real-time PvP is because otherwise, if there's not too many players online, which could be something that happens at the start of the game, hopefully we get hundreds of thousands of players, but if we only get a couple of thousands, we do want to make sure that there's always a PvP match to be had. And I don't want to mention specific names, but there are NFT games on the chain, also within Secret Network, that basically, you go into the arena or you go into your PvP match, and then you get like, the circle of death, the timer just going round and round and round, like looking for player, looking for player, looking for player, looking for player. That's something we desperately want to avoid, because that really takes the pace out of the game, and especially in tower defense, exactly. The pace needs to be pretty high.
Even if there are thousands of players, it might not necessarily be somebody on at your skill level or at your level that you want to play at. So if you can just go in and choose at your leisure what tower what map you want to attack, that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. So you really are gonna start talking about tens of thousands of players to be able to consistently provide a real-time PvP match.
Right.
But then still, it might be the case that you're constantly being drawn against the same player over and over again, because that player happens to be online as well. And if you want to have that variety in PvP, being able to pull all the offline players into the pool from which an enemy can be selected is a great way to increase diversity and basically increase the fun that people can have in the game. And who knows, maybe, if the game gets really popular, we do get hundreds of thousands of players, we can always change that mechanic in the future, where we have maybe real-time maps, or maybe that's a specific season or a specific league or a specific arena separate from the rest, so that, you know, if you can't find anybody, you can always go back to that offline mode or semi-offline mode.
Yeah.
But maybe we have like maybe a hardcore league or whatever that has that real-time combat in it. Always possible.
Oh, got to get a ranked league in there for sure.
We got many ideas.
Nice. That is, yeah, that's awesome. So many different game modes, PvE, PvP, single player. But I want to take a look at the Armory here, because this is where you go in to actually see your towers as well as their schematics and mods. And we've talked a bunch about NFTs, but these towers and their mods, these are the NFTs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're in the Armory, you can choose, you have your cannon towers, you can look at the different types of towers. Each one has different scales. You have your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. You can equip shield mods, you can equip gun mods. It's very intricate. Now, each of the towers are NFTs. Are each of these mods themselves individual NFTs as well?
Yep, absolutely.
Excellent. And so and so these will trade on a market like Stash, for instance?
Yeah, Stash. We definitely want to have the full collection on Stash as well. So, you know, if we do indeed get to tens of thousands of players, we do expect that Orbem Wars will probably be the most traded collection on Stash, unless like another more popular game comes around, because it generally, you know, it generates a lot of trade volume again, because there's simply going to be so many items in the game. So yeah. But you're absolutely right. You described it very well. You got your 5 tower slots that you take into a match. So those are indeed the 5 slots on the left-hand side there. Right now, there's only 5 tower types in the game, but that will increase to at least, I believe we got 12 planned in total. So in the future, players will also have to choose what towers do I bring into my match, especially with PvP. That becomes very interesting, because you'll see a meta develop. It might be that a large amount of players are choosing to go with railguns. Well, if everybody is going with railguns, that might be a really good idea that you go with kinetic tanks or mecha tanks if you are a PvP player, because those generally perform better against kinetic tanks. Or kinetic towers, kinetic-based towers. So, you know, we will see that the smartest players, let's say, will be able to analyze, hey, what's the meta? What do I encounter most often, and how can I counter that best? And of course, as they rise to the highest ranks in the PvP ladder, people are going to copy their strategies, and that will then slowly shift the meta and cycle the meta continuously. So we're very curious how players will be using all the various tools and gadgets that we're going to give them. But yeah, expect that to be expanded upon significantly. Hopefully, upcoming Tuesday, the 6th tower is going to be released, and that will be the first electronic warfare tower. So it's going to be, definitely shift the meta again.
Sweet. So a question about these NFTs. Some of the lower level ones, are those going to be kind of an unlimited run so that people always have access to them and they're relatively cheap in price?
They're definitely not unlimited. Okay. And that's on one hand very scary. On the other hand, we don't really see any other way. You know, we think that if you create an NFT game, the NFT becomes some sort of an investment. You can't really avoid that. And if you want to make sure that NFT stays valuable to the player, that they are not feeling like, you know, if a player feels like, hey, I'm buying this turret now for $6, but I know when I want to sell it, it's probably only going to be $1 worth, because, you know, it's an unlimited amount and it's just going to be an unlimited inflation, then that basically doesn't give players a very good feeling to, you know, experiment and buy on Stash. If you can give players, well, definitely not a certainty, or definitely no guarantee that it will keep its value. But if you can give the economic incentives for a item to stay true to its price or stay valuable, or maybe even increase in value, then that makes the game much more enjoyable, because you don't have to feel guilty about buying a new turret on Stash, for example. So they're definitely all limited run. However, the numbers are, of course, quite high. As we hear on the Armory, it's actually kind of handy. You got 5 tower slots. Each has 3 tiers, and each tier can fit 3 modifications. So that's a total of 60 NFTs in a single layout or single loadout. And if you want to have maybe some backup NFTs in your inventory that you can switch strategies, then potentially a player can have up to like 60, 70, 80 NFTs. If it's, let's say, a little bit more of a, well, not hardcore player, but if the player takes themselves a little bit more seriously, we're definitely talking like a full NFT loadout. So that means that, you can do the math. Let's say that we have 10,000 players, which I think is lowballing it. And let's say half of those players are serious. Well, you can do the math. That's 60 NFTs times 5,000 players. Then you're already talking like 300,000 NFTs. So we're talking about a very, very large collection of NFTs that will be distributed slowly over time.
So
Awesome.
speaking of, I just want to ask, this is a play to earn game. And while we talked about trading and buying NFTs, what are all the different ways that people can actually get their hands on these NFTs besides just buying them on the marketplace?
Yeah, so basically there's 3 ways that you can get them. One is through airdrops. We've organized an airdrop at the beginning of this year that will be distributed once Orbem Wars goes into early access. So that's 11,725 NFTs, I believe. We have hinted many times, and I cannot confirm, but I'll continue to hint that if we have to introduce new types of economies, for example, when we introduce the tank NFTs, it makes sense for us to kickstart that economy in a similar fashion as we plan to kickstart the tower economy. Like, you can't start with, the first person to get an NFT. That's generally not a great way to kickstart an economy. It's generally good to have like an influx at the beginning. So that will probably continue, but no guarantees there. And then you basically get them through the loot. So when you do your PvE in your campaigns on those planets, all those different maps, that's where you have a small chance to loot an NFT. In the alpha, that chance is considerably higher because we want to test them out. But once the actual game starts, you'll see that loot chance is considerably lower. And then the last one is, of course, through those events. So through the large events, the contract events, but also in the PvP part, we'll probably have some sort of like leagues, arena, seasons, some sort of a ranking system that, maybe if you're the best player or you got the most points in a week, then there's like a weekly reward or distribution related to the arenas or the PvP combat.
Yeah, I will say I got my free NFT from one of those events, and yeah, they were
Very
really
nice.
slick and smooth. It was fun. Yeah.
Congrats.
So I want to work through the rest of the options, and I was hoping that we had some time. I wanted to play a quick round to show people what the actual gameplay looks like. But before I do, I wanted to ask you about the lab. This seems like it's as you can see, we've accumulated some research points here, but we're still waiting on the laboratory. Is that right?
Yep. So the laboratory is basically going to be a way that we avoid. I mean, with every single NFT game that you were to build, no matter the genre, if the NFTs represent in-game items like they do in Orbem Wars, there's always an element of pay to win. Somebody can go on Stash, throw in a couple of $1,000s on the best NFTs, and suddenly, they're top of the board. So the laboratory is a mechanic to basically dampen the effect of that, the negative effects of that. You're going to be researching your technology through the research points that you collect over time by playing the game. And the research that you do basically is things like, percentage increases, 2%, 3%, 4% increase to kinetic weapons or to missile launches, rate of fire, or all those kinds of little tweaks in your combat ability that are going to be able to separate you from a brand new player that may have just purchased all their NFTs on Stash. So it's a way to basically reward veteran players and to make sure that the pay to win is not destroying the game, or destroy. It's a heavy word, but there's negative implications with pay to win.
I love that, because that was one of my major questions. So because that's a risk, of course. So that's very cool.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you guys are aware of it too, and not just brushing it off, saying like, "Oh, it's not going to happen." Like, it's good to be aware that somebody can go out there and always just buy enough stuff to at least compete. So to kind of be able to mitigate, that's nice.
Yeah, there's 2 ways we mitigate it. One is the laboratory, but the other way is, of course, it's the meta. It's the constantly shifting meta. Like if you currently take if you take all the modules and the towers that we've got planned, and not even talking about the tank side of things then yet, we've calculated that I think currently there's 46 quintillion different options with which you could come fit your loadout and come into a match with. So with that many options, of course, knowledge of the game, knowledge of what is good against what. Basically, it's a very, very complex rock, paper, scissors game. And we could even take the Big Bang version where Sheldon said like a rock, paper, Spock, lizard, something, and you could probably add a couple more things to it. It's a very complex rock, paper, scissors game where different strategies counter each other. And if you are not familiar with those mechanics, then it's really hard to come on top, no matter how good your NFTs are. So that's one way that we counter the pay to win element, and the laboratory is basically the second one. The more one is soft and the other one is more hard. One is more strategic. The other one is more number effect based. So two ways to counter that, and we can always change the game up a little bit or increase the potential of the laboratory in case we consider or we see that it's not enough.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I did notice that when playing that you can't just throw all the best towers on. You have to kind of be a little strategic on what towers you're using and what kind. And so even if you just bought all the best stuff, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to go out and win the levels per se.
Exactly. You experience that against a computer-generated opponent. So imagine how that is increased when you start talking PvP. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a perfect example of that, because I was playing and I was just upgrading my towers as much as possible. And then I won one of these low-grade T1 towers. I got like a super rare version. And all of a sudden, because they're less expensive to make, it was powerful enough that it was just better for me to make these low-grade towers all over the place and spend all this money constantly upgrading to tier 3. Like the trade-offs just shift when you just get one new NFT. And
absolutely.
And that's funny, actually. I was the exact opposite. I got a really good tier 3 one. So I was just putting down a couple towers and upgrading those to tier 3.
Yeah, and this is a perfect scenario, perfect use. Now these NFTs are going to be rare, and in many games, you have these guides, these online guides that say like, oh, if you do this and this and this strategy, then you're going to be awesome and you're going to beat everything. Well, that's very difficult in Orbem Wars because all the NFTs are limited run; they're not infinite. So there's not like you can only buy what's available on Stash, and you can only use what you either can buy or find yourself. So we very much expect that people are going to find a couple of really good NFTs, and those indeed could be tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and they'll build their rest of their loadout around that super good NFT to find a strategy that really works for them. Everybody's going to try to maximize their combat ability, and that's going to be a different challenge, a different question, different inputs to that equation for every single player, because there's so much randomization in the NFTs. I mean, that's maybe something you can show as well in the Armory if you click into one of the NFTs. I'm not sure if you got. Well, that's not an NFT. Do you happen to have a tower NFT in your?
The railgun, I think I have the tier 3 one.
So here you can see in the stat column there in the middle section, you can see the design column. So that's that one. So here you can see the stats that NFT can roll with. So the first 2 rarities, I haven't mentioned that yet, are non-NFT. So the outdated and the modern rarities are non-NFT. They're virtual items. They're going to be super abundant in the loot so that everybody can get started. And then the last 4 rarities are NFTs. Now, of course, there's different stats between each of the rarity, but then within the rarity itself, there's going to be randomization on the smart contract, how the NFT is actually going to roll. So if you look, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we get to like 46 quintillion different possibilities.
Oh yeah,
because all those NFTs are going to be have slight deviation. So it could be that if you already got a high-tech railgun and you find another high-tech railgun, it could be that still that new high-tech railgun that you found is a little bit better than the high-tech railgun that you already had. And that's also true again for play to win, or pay to win, I should say. Pay to win players that are going to go on Stash. You can only buy on Stash what another person is selling on Stash. And people are likely going to keep the best turrets to themselves, which is another way that we ensure that the pay-to-win player is going to have a hard time getting to the very best gear available. That's probably going to be kept by the players themselves.
Question on that, on stash. So I know with secret NFTs, you kind of have the ability to hide some information.
Yep.
Will that be something where on stash, it's just going to show they have a damage range of 330 to 348, so you won't actually be able to tell? That's cool.
Yeah. On stash, you should be able to see what you're buying. But then so basically the ownership of the NFT is going to be basically everything is going to be in the public metadata, but then the ownership of the NFT will be private. So you won't be able to see which NFTs people have because you can't query them. But if somebody were to whitelist you, then all of that data is is public, basically.
Gotcha.
Excellent.
All right, Jake, you want to jump into a game here?
I do, because we're running, I think, towards the end here, but I definitely want to give people a sneak peek, and I hope this doesn't crash my moderately old computer. But
this game go with the endless wave here. All right.
Yeah, I did see that you started wave number 4 there, which is interesting because, I think you're going to have to cancel this one. This actually looks like a bug in the game. I'm not sure how you've done this.
Oh, did I?
Hey.
Yes. So an important point to point out, each of these planets comes with this different difficulty levels. You start with Cadet, Captain, Commander, and Endless. And I've been destroyed on Endless enough times. So I'm going to go back down to Cadet because I don't need to embarrass myself that much.
Yeah, it didn't look like you have the NFTs to handle that yet.
I don't think so. Definitely not. But just to give people a quick overview, you have your incoming enemies up top. So I'm going to face 3 of these very agile tanks. These are the number of waves. I haven't begun yet. My life bar, which slowly goes down as enemies that I can't kill get to the end. My dollar amounts up here, how much I have to spend, and of course my towers. So I'm going to quick plunk down a few. And I'm sorry if this strategy seems abysmal to you. This is my go-to on the first level. So please let me know if is it? Yeah, just I'm going to litter some towers here, and I think I'm going to upgrade. No, I'm out. I'm at $18 left, so I'm going to let this rip because these are my little pellet shooters. And as we've been talking about, some of these towers do really good damage against specific types of enemies. And these pellet guns seem to do really well against these quick enemies.
Yeah, definitely.
What's the next big update that we should expect? Yeah.
Well, that's basically the introduction of the first electronic warfare tower.
Okay.
So it's gonna hopefully come up Tuesday. What will that be? Like the 2nd of May or something like that? That was the 3rd of May.
The 3rd. Yep.
So that will be a mobility jammer. So basically, it's going to slow down the incoming tanks. So of course, that means that you're gonna be able to put higher caliber towers down that normally wouldn't be able to track a certain enemy, but then will be able. So that could be a strategy if you maybe have lasers or missile launches, which have very low tracking. But now you will be able to track the faster tanks that you otherwise wouldn't. But of course, it comes at the expense of having to invest money into a tower that has no offensive capabilities. So you're reducing the DPS that you have on the map. So again, it's all about strategy. If you already have a map with a lot of slow enemies, then putting that mobility jammer down is probably not the best way to go. But on a map like this, with a lot of these hover tanks,
be a perfect map for it.
Yeah, that plasma turret down below is going to have a hard time tracking the incoming hover tanks. But with a mobility jammer, it should have no problem with doing that.
So that was the first level everyone will likely experience. Those are the easiest enemies. They're pretty quick. They're not always the easiest when you face 30 of them at a time, but they get all the way up to these big walking tanks, these like spider tanks that where the strategy, what you choose to spend money on, really can be punishing. And then, of course, this is the victory screen or the losing screen, depending on your fate. You get your stats. And this is pretty cool. I mean, we talked about play to earn. This Vulcan cannon, it's gray, so this is the most common. The tech is outdated. It's a tier 2, but this is what I won that round. So now when I go to my armory, I should see that Vulcan
Yep.
cannon.
That's
It's
it.
right there. So I get to use it in all my future rounds.
Yeah.
So then that would
Yep.
be something in the future where we could potentially sell that on Stash, or is that one that's going to be just in game?
That particular one, outdated, is one that will stay
Yeah.
in game, is virtual. But in the same way, you could also find yourself with a high tech next gen quantum or enigmatic turret in the loot there, and that would be able to be sold. Maybe a little bit about that. Is that, of course, you know, the question might then be, and maybe now I'm questioning myself, but of course, like. There might be a question like, how do you monetize it? How do you make sure that, you know, as a game studio, you make money? Because we don't have a token. We're not selling the NFTs. You know, all the NFTs will be available through loot, through airdrop. We're not selling a single one, and we don't have any token to sell either. And I can get into the why for that in a moment. So when you loot an NFT, it's registered on our game server. And we don't put it in your wallet yet. Basically, what we do is Domerium Labs, we are custodial to your NFT the moment that you loot it. The reason why we do that is because by playing the custodial when somebody looted, it means that a player doesn't require a capital wallet, doesn't require secret, doesn't require anything to be able to start playing Orbem Wars. You can literally have somebody download Orbem Wars from the Google Play Store once we got the mobile version out, and never even heard of Bitcoin. They could start playing Orbem Wars and earn NFTs. The only difference is that we are the custodial of that NFT. Now, the moment that you loot an NFT, you could close the game, go to our website, go to the NFT manager, and register or claim that NFT to your own wallet. So, you know, of course, not your keys, not your crypto, not your keys, not your NFT. So you could claim it to your own wallet, have it in your own wallet, and the game server will still query your wallet to put it in your inventory. Now, when you claim that NFT, you pay a small dev fee to us in order to claim it, which will compensate us for the minting cost. And that NFT is going to be in the game in a locked status. And if you want to put it to stash, you will have to unlock it from the game. And again, there's like a small dev fee, but basically it's going to cut into your profit, I guess. But since you bring it to stash to make a profit in the first place, that dev fee is going to be, you know, we're talking less than $1 for sure, probably less than $0.50. But that's basically our monetization model. We take micro fees from the interactions with the NFTs, and that's how we pay ourselves, the developers, and future development of the game.
Nice.
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, because I think what you've done here is you've tried to address what I think is a central issue of play to earn and crypto games, which is you have the market mechanics and you have the game mechanics, and a lot of people, they're not interested in the market. They just want a good game to play. But by making it really optional, which I think you've done here, there's nothing preventing anyone from just jumping in, playing some tower defense and having fun. And the fact that there's others that want to be involved in the market doesn't ruin it for everyone. It doesn't, it's not a requirement to enjoy it. And
yeah, I think knowing players, most people will be interested in the market, but I think that interest doesn't necessarily come from day one. And I think that's the biggest problem. Like I take Axie Infinity as an example, and I definitely don't want to discredit them. I mean, what they've done is awesome, right? They've really put NFT gaming in the spotlight, and you know the millions of players they've been able to collect. My hats off to them. I can only hope that the Orbem Wars will be successful. Nonetheless, let's say that Axie Infinity was a game you can download on Steam. You know, if you can choose between the latest Medal of Honor for $70 or Axie Infinity with your free starting Axies for $850, you know, that's a tough choice. And maybe it's not even that tough. I think most people will just skip on that if they're not already in crypto, not already sort of have that idea of, hey, this is more than just purchasing a game. This is an investment, and I have the opportunity to earn. Like a lot of that is still, let's say, in its infancy. So what we wanted to do with Orbem Wars is basically lower that barrier of entry, that $850 price tag. We wanted to lower that to the free-to-play games that you have on mobile, just $0, Just start playing it and see if you like it before you start considering it anything else than a game. I mean, you could definitely consider it like a marketing, a play-to-earn game, a way to make some extra bucks on the side if you play and sell your NFTs on Stash. But it's not how everybody's going to come in. It's not how we're going to onboard 2.4 billion players into NFT gaming. And everybody keeps talking about how NFT gaming can be this massive onboarding vehicle to basically go from 300 million crypto holders to billions of crypto holders, because gamers already have affinity with technology, affinity with experimenting and figuring out mechanics, which is basically, some people even say that the entire crypto market is one big game. So that's pretty closely related. But we're not going to onboard 2 billion people by asking them an onboarding price of $850, and that's something we wanted to address.
I mean, I think even $100 for a lot of people is when you say like you can get a AAA game for $50-$60 or even less on sale. A lot of gamers, it's hard to
justify.
Hard to justify that. Yeah, when it's like, hey, do you want to try this game out? All right, it costs $900 to try it.
Yeah,
so there's a disconnect there and that's why I really like that. That's what really stuck out for me with Orbem Wars was that it's like, I can jump in, I can play, I don't even need a wallet, I don't need anything, and then if I enjoy it, I can go get my wallet, I can take my NFTs, I can do stuff with them, but that's after the fact. That's not the first thing that you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's something we, it looks like a small effort for us as crypto natives, let's say, a wallet, but imagine that, you've heard of Bitcoin in the news, but you've never actually owned any crypto. Imagine that we're not only going to tell you your game is going to cost $900, but now also, go to this website and download this application. Make sure it's the right website, because otherwise you get scammed. And those 24 words, those are all the security of your bank account. And maybe you have to buy some crypto steel with engraved metal plates because, hey, that's very valuable. Don't lose it. You have to go through the entire learning process and all those steps. Which are absolutely not common to somebody that has never owned crypto before. You got to do all that just to try a game and see if you like it. It's a lot to ask, and
huge paid point or sticking point.
Yeah, that's a lot to ask anyone, and gamers especially can be quite vocal about their objections.
Exactly. When you press download on Steam, you want to play it now and not in 2 minutes. Now, let's say you also got to put up this wallet and connect everything and that may all seem very scary for somebody that's new. I mean, I remember when I was creating my first wallet back in 2017, it felt very uncomfortable. Am I doing the right things? Is this correct? Is this the right website? And it's you hear all these crazy stories, and the fact that you could first try Orbem Wars, maybe earn a couple of NFTs. We also planned, of course, to have a chat in the game so you can chat with other players. People that have no crypto whatsoever, just try it out. May see, chat in the chat box, in the general chat, like, hey, what's a price check on a enigmatic railgun? Or hey, what's a price check on this projectile upgrade that I just found? And they'll see people talk about real dollar values that may pique their interest. They may not even know that they're playing an NFT game. Like if you just download it, you don't even know it. And then, when they see all this chat, they might be like, hey, what's all this talk about real dollar value? And then it's like, oh, this is an NFT game. Did you know? And here, go to the stash. Here, you can see how much all these. And then, if they've been playing for a couple of weeks, they maybe realize like, oh, MG, I got $300 in my account. And can I sell this? It's like, yeah, you can sell it. And of course, then we as Domerium Labs have to be there with all those tutorials, all the onboarding material. How do you create your wallet? That's on us to make sure that we create that sort of safe environment for these non-crypto natives to actually onboard them into the crypto space with a secret network first experience. That's like that's what we.
That's nice that you have a website, you have somewhere to guide them, so you're not just saying, hey, go create a Kepler wallet and then come back and you're helping people that don't know what they're doing, or then like people like us where we know what we're doing, we can just go on, connect to the site and go on our way.
Connect your wallet to your game account, and then when you say claim NFT, then we'll just put it in your Kepler wallet. Yep.
Perfect.
Nice. Well, Stefan, you've been super generous with your time today. So right now we're in Alpha 4.2. Can you just, before we go, give us a sense of where we go from here? Are we going into beta soon? Are we going to be in alpha for a little while? What does the pathway look like?
Yeah, so it's broken up. Like alpha is mostly focused on stability and finding the right balance between the various towers and the various modules. For that, we just need as many players playing as possible. So if you're listening to this, you haven't tried it yet, please give it a go. We can analyze your game account from a distance, and all of that is big data that we can use. So definitely please play it. And maybe to iterate a little bit on that, I don't want to go too long. But once we mint the NFTs, we can change the stats. It's not like, your general game where you have swords and spears, and the swords are a little bit too powerful and the spears underwhelming. Patch 1.01, let's decrease the sword damage a little bit and increase maybe the attack rate of the spear a little bit. We don't have those balancing opportunities at our disposal because the in-game items are NFTs, and it's against the ethos of blockchain to change those stats after mint. Mm-hmm. So that really, I guess that's like the single biggest source of stress for us, because that's something that as a game developer is really scary. But yeah, you have to live with it. That's part of innovating. So that's why we take a lot of time to analyze all that data before we go to mint. So alpha is mostly focused on that. Beta is going to be about testing the smart contract functionality. So that's basically once we go to the testnet of Secret Network. We don't really expect that to take too long, because once we got the stats right, once the smart contracts have proven to work, then we could pretty much go into early access launch. So we expect to be a couple more weeks in alpha, then a short beta to follow up with that, assuming that the smart contracts work as intended, and then a launch. So we expect maybe a late June launch if everything goes well. I mentioned just before we started recording that I've just recovered from COVID. That has definitely put some strain on the hours that I've been able to put in the last couple of weeks. But I think like an end June, beginning July, hopefully early access launch. But it's very much under consideration and based on the data that we get and the outcome of the beta.
Excellent. Well, hey, we got an exciting year ahead, it sounds like. I hope everything goes well. Really appreciate you hopping on. Anyone that hasn't, please go to Domerium Labs Twitter, get into their Discord. It's so easy to get started. Go check the game out. We're in alpha right now. And thanks for joining us today, Stefan. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me. And looking forward to hear the recording myself, and maybe in a couple of months when we have another big update, it's maybe a good time to do another revisit and see where we are. Maybe talk about the metaverse that we're building.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, there's we'll definitely have you back on. I know me and Greg will be playing the whole time, so we'll see you again.
All right, super cool. Thank you guys.
All right, thank you.
Cheers.